Principles of sports nutrition.
Active rest. Now take a look at the photo and think of yourself like this hiker being in that environment. It's natural. And not only is being in that environment having a positive influence on that individual in many, many ways, sometimes even impossible to describe, but even looking at it has a healing effect. So nature is remarkable in that you can experience it and even look at it, and it influences our entire biochemistry cascade of cells that leads into a healing state. This is just phenomenal. Now, athletes who train during injury may be risking permanent damage. In fact, they are risking permanent damage, and this is very common. You see athletes in the gym, on the field, playing sports all the time who so-called train through injuries, and they often end up being maimed, injured for life, chronically suffering with an ankle, a knee, a shoulder that for whatever reason, and no one can explain it, including their practitioner, therapist, nobody can explain why it won't heal. And it has to do with the initial development of the injury and then ignoring the facts, ignoring physiology, ignoring physics, ignoring forces that are greater than us. Now, minor injuries must be given time to heal, as continued stress will exacerbate the injury and complicate the recovery process, forcing withdrawal from competition or premature retirement. Many elite and professional athletes have learned this lesson the hard way. However, in all cases when possible, it's best to continue moving and incorporate alternative therapeutic exercise, provided it doesn't aggravate the injury. This is known as active rest, and the key statement here is provided it doesn't aggravate the injury. So you do not train through injuries, you train around them. And you train as a smart athlete devoted to the success of wellness and optimum health. By keeping active around the injury, we can move our blood through the body and keep the tissue well oxygenated, which enhances the effects of waste turnover in the injury site. Active rest could equate to a walk in the park, an afternoon swim, a casual bike ride, or a hike in the woods. The idea is to avoid any activity or exercise that irritates the injury directly. And if you feel it being irritated, stop. Move away from that particular motion, exercise, or activity. It's how you become aware of yourself. It's how you feel out yourself, your limbs, your joints, your tissues, your muscles in the gym. You get an injury and you start moving it through a certain range of motion in a particular exercise, and you can feel pain, you feel trauma. So you move away from that, you find an alternative motion activity that doesn't irritate the injury but allows you to continue moving. Now, in many cases, broken bones heal faster when exposed to some movement and controlled resistance. Complete immobilization of a limb produces muscle atrophy. That's an outdated approach. You break a bone, you put yourself in a cast, and you stay in a bed for 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. That is now outdated. As soon as you can move around, you begin to move around, but you have to pay particular attention to the injury. You don't want to irritate it, but you don't want to do nothing either. Having broken both my wrists and my ankle playing lacrosse, football, and wrestling, I know from my own experience that my skeletal tissue healed much faster by moving my arms and legs and by actually walking on my cast, as opposed to being completely bedridden, which was advised by my doctor. And that way would have kept me away from that which I loved. So the whole idea is not to be in a hurry, not to be in a rush to get better in spite of the injury itself, which has to dominate your thinking. You have to Build around that weak link, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. And if you're injured, you can't compete. If you're injured, you're on the sidelines. If you're injured, you can't go into the event that you've been training for months or for years. So the whole key is to remain injury-free, to prevent the disaster, to do everything that it takes to stay well. But when you do get injured, and injuries are almost always inevitable in the athletic way of life, be smart and understand this concept called active rest.